We'll actually just jump right into the program and welcome up on stage Evelyn Norman from the foundation to give a summary from yesterday, to remind us all what happened yesterday. So, Emily, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. I hope you had well, I definitely think we all agreed that the discussions yesterday were really fruitful. So thank you for that. I thought it was an intense but really good day, and I think we all in the partnership, in the consortium in NordSEnt, agree that it was a good day, and I think also the dinner we had, and I hope you got back to your hotels in time and are fresh for today, because today we're going to be taking forward, I think, some of the discussions we heard yesterday, and of course we're also going to have the paper presentation cases, so really a peer-to-peer today where we can dive into a lot of the topics and some of these examples that we also started discussing yesterday. So the partnership, we were meeting this morning trying to wrap up what have we heard on yesterday, what was the key takeaways, and I've been summarizing them here and we'll present them. And of course, I don't think we have captured everything. Johan and I will also, before we end today, try to capture fully what we have heard throughout the conference. So if you hear things, when I'm going through them now, you think, well, actually, what about my excellent point? I didn't see it up on the screen. Please either say it now or convey it to us, because then we will try to summarize kind of key findings from the overall conference later on, and also how maybe we take the agenda forward. So some of the things I think that we can all agree on, and that was very clear, is that there's a general agreement that the topic of sustainable entrepreneurship is a critical agenda, and that the universities and higher education institutes play a critical role in promoting sustainable entrepreneurship. There's no doubt about that. It's also very clear, because we had some of those discussions yesterday, is there a natural fit between sustainability and entrepreneurship and green transition? And yes, there is. Also, no doubt about that. But we also had some discussions about addressing sustainability requires that we look at ourselves as institutions, and our ethics and our values. It also requires us to keep an agile mindset. It's an agenda that is changing. And how do we, as large organizations that is used to change, but we are an organizations where embedding change maybe requires some time, and we have an urgent agenda. How do we address that? There was also some good points about the fact that the talents that we educate and that we work with, some of the key things that is so critical, and maybe they learn when working with both entrepreneurship on one end and sustainability, is the complexity management. I mean, we really get talents who manage and who can work and who can be in complexity. Because climate change and sustainability is one of the most complex societal challenges we are faced with. And entrepreneurship, very clearly for all of us who's been working with it for a long time, is also a complex topic in itself. So that's actually some of the, I think, the key selling points with sustainable entrepreneurship is that we are educating, we are nurturing talent who have that mindset, who have that skill set to go out and work with complexity in society. So there was a question that was going as a red thread through the first day. It was also addressed by Colette as our key speaker. Is entrepreneurship the solution to sustainability challenges? Yes, she said, but yes, if we address and look at issues such as leadership and how we understand sustainability. So it's not a purely given, or it needs some requirements around it to be addressed. There's an issue of structural change, as I said, as institutions of knowledge and innovation and change. How do we embed that as a structural change? Are we fit for doing that? We also need to maybe define the purpose of entrepreneurship education, and also reconceptualize, you said, the role of entrepreneurship educators. So she was very, I think, adamant that entrepreneurship educators are critical agents in this agenda, and agents of the change, and also, as I said before, and agents of giving students the appreciation of complexity and giving them the tools to operate there. Entrepreneurship is an aggregator of content, I think was also a good point that was said. We need to evoke student curiosity very clearly. They are very tuned in. As some said, the students want the change to happen much more maybe than the educators and professors. So how do we mobilize that, and how do we evoke that need to make a difference that a lot of them have? Partnership design new views. It was also said by Colette that maybe the SDGs sometimes are hard to relate to, and they're a little bit sort of at the meta level. And there's also issues of how do we then break them down? And is it really the SDGs themselves? I think there was a good discussion in the afternoon as well. Is it about the SDGs? And maybe we're a little bit beyond that in a sense. So finally, the role of the universities. What frameworks do we put in place? How do we invite companies and problem owners, as we can also call it, municipalities, businesses and others who are really dealing with the climate change? They are the problem owners. How do we invite them in to our platforms and our spaces? And how do we best mobilize students into the challenges that they need? And are they always the experts? I mean, there was also a really interesting discussion about creativity and learning how to fail. And I think we can provide that safe space for learning how to fail and really address complexity, and maybe also challenge sometimes that they may be the problem owners in a large sort of energy consortium, but they may not be the experts. They also need to learn how to fail, and we can provide that space. Universities need to be aware of the strategic decisions they make. I mean, and they also need to have a strategic framework in place. And it was said by a few, that is one of the key challenges, that there needs to be a strategic decision at management, at leadership level, in order to mobilize the full sort of ecosystem of a university. And both sort of what happens in the hubs and the incubators, with education as well, and in the partnership. And that's a really complex and difficult task, I think, for universities. Also, as was said, they also surrounded, that comes back to the point about the benefits of being sustainable should be highly prioritized as financial priorities, because we all know that we as a knowledge institution, publicly funded, we are operating in a difficult space where we have external demands, policy demands, ministerial demands on us, which means that sometimes we may need to balance the external pulls with what we know is critical competencies that we're working with our students around. I really like some of the points also in the afternoon space about seeing ourselves as this as a platform for change, speeding that up, and really working with the notion of collaboration and as co-creation. Because I think it's very clear that we have seen, and also what we have collected in the guidebook and some of the cases we will hear for the rest of the morning. There's so much going on. There's so much richness out there, so many initiatives. But are we acting rapidly enough? Are we collecting? Are we getting the overview? Are we learning from each other? Are we leveraging what we know fast enough, considering that this is an urgent agenda? And that, I think, is a real challenge for large, historical, traditional institutions to say, actually, we have all the, I think we have a portfolio of knowledge, of talent, of partnerships, of funding. And how do we mobilize that into rapid change? I think that's probably some of the key challenges for us as agents in the sustainability, on the sustainability path. So I think that was just some of my and the consortium's lessons when we were trying to wrap up the discussions from yesterday. How do we take the discussion forward? How do we improve the work of the universities within sustainable entrepreneurship? Definitely benchmarking. We need to learn from each other, and we need to leverage each other's knowledge and experiences and initiatives. And that's what we're going to learn more and discuss more about. I think, Magnus, do we have time for a few comments on that? Whether we have captured the key points. Is there anything we have missed that you felt, okay, that should be up on there as well? Or are there any of these points you feel, okay, this is actually the critical issue. This is the one that we should be elaborating on. Yeah? Sure.
Yeah, I mean, particularly the last point here, this slide, learn from each other. I think we really need to be aware that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. A lot of great ideas exist from other universities. Let's work together. Let's try to be more practical about it. And yeah, I mean, easier said than done. But I mean, especially academics, they like to reinvent the wheels, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, this is particularly, I think, a very important point.
Yeah. And I think also, now we've been discussing sustainable entrepreneurship in the Nordic and Baltic region. And I think we can say that in the same space, I think we in the Nordics are very good at innovation. I think we're good as, I think we have really pushed our knowledge institution, our universities, to a point where they're very good collaborators and hotspots. So is there a Nordic approach around sustainable entrepreneurship that we can take forward, and that we can sophisticate, and that can be like, I think, a sort of an inspiring demonstration for other European countries. Yeah, so point taking about leveraging and trying to learn from each other and doing it in a systematic way. That's also what the guidebook that we launched yesterday, and also maybe some of the things that Johan and I will, when we wrap up this morning, the conference, how can we maybe take some of this work forward? How can we take the discussion forward in the best way? Has anybody come up with that? Anybody would like to volunteer your institute as maybe a vehicle for that?
Am I on? Yeah, I'm on. Any more comments, questions to Emily?
No.
Everything is crystal clear.
And we're warming up.
Yeah, you're warming up. I was just saying this morning that when the energy really got going, was it at the end yesterday, there were a lot of hands up just before we finished, so sort of just come back into that mode, because we had to stop for dinner, but think about what the question didn't get to ask yesterday, and now there's a chance to ask them today. So, yeah. But commenting on your thing, I was thinking, so that I think everybody should copy with pride. Yeah. Instead of inventing, and then, I mean, the academics are especially with, and give credit. Copy with pride and give credit, and then everybody's happy about it, because then...
And it's happening. It's
yeah,
you see that.
but it could be done much, much more.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then with that, thank you very much. And we're going to move on in the program. Thank you, Emily. So it's time for the first presentation for this morning, and it's we know her from yesterday, Birte Lund, and she's going to talk about development of entrepreneurial value creation by sustainable actions. So the floor is yours for the next 15 minutes. And we have a change in the program. I'll just let you all know. So Aron Podavka is unavailable this morning because he and his is having a child this morning, so that's at the hospital. So it's sort of a valid excuse for not being here. So we're going to move up the first presentation for the second workshop after Birte. But Birte, now the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure I make clarity. I always create more chaos than clarity, but we'll see how it goes. I'll focus on value and value creation, and if you just look at these words, you can see that conceptualization is very important, and it's very complex. So when we try to combine both sustainability, entrepreneurship, and humanity and ethics, it's a complicated case, because most of the time we won't talk about the same thing. And this is just to show where we are in this organization. It's Aalborg University, and it's a collaboration between this faculty where I belong to, culture and learning, and AAU Innovation, who are dealing with funding and management and startups. And employability is a very hot issue at Aalborg University and other universities. If your students can't get a job, then they will lose a number. So I see, and we see, employability as a new possibility for creating jobs. So we try to frame this sustainability and innovation within the educational course, and make it a mandatory course for the students at this master program. And we are the developing team, and we are across. We're from social science and humanity and philosophy and innovation. So we had a lot of discussion and disagreements, and it's good. So what I am particularly interested in, and I think I've always been, is how to develop action competences. And it means actually it's not one competence, it's a broad competence to guide appropriate action and ability, attitudes and values and willingness and opportunities to act. And I'm very concerned about this willingness to act and on which condition you act. So the exact context, it's a very small context. It's just the T10 ETCS course, and what we are concerned about is how students construct meaning and how it could develop to action competence. And we think that should be developed within trying to use their knowledge in a real world context. And it's the complicated part. So this is the aim is to contribute to value creation to companies, and we're still stuck in the 7 SDGs, which we think is a good point. And it's the second year for the process. And there's a lot of statement about sustainability. If we just take how do we define sustainability, how do we define entrepreneurship, how do we define creativity. And there's an old paper from 2010 which says the sustainability programs demand serious didactic reorientation. Here not talking about entrepreneurship in any way, and I agree very much in that. He also referred to that both the knowledge-based and the value-based sustainability are variable, unstable, and questionable. So this is what we experienced, and it also that is a crossroad of science, technology, and society, and we put it to humanity. So this about talking about sustainability is very different from acting, and this is this acting part that I would like to our students to develop into. We are inspired by the entrepreneurship framework, and what I've just circled in what aspect we are particularly interested in about mobilizing others and learning to experience and working with others is the collaborating part with an issue. And I was part of a development group who developed a new definition about entrepreneurship, PBL. And we said that it's the study form where students through interactive learning process develop entrepreneurial mindset in a problem-oriented project work, where we said that wonder is the driving force where theoretical, methodological, and empirical knowledge are translated into new value creation through target-acted and an ethical basis and in cooperation with relevant stakeholders. And this ethical basis I am interested in, because I think that's where the humanity introduced, and you can find that publication on the net. So this is sort of a model about a PBL. I won't go into details with that, but I think I have the time. So how do we actually, within this particular setting, educate students so they can be more action-oriented and value-creating students? So what kind of values are the student to feel responsible for? What kind of challenge do we get there? So when we have introduced this course in collaboration with the time of the year where the 6 months where they are also in internships, and that it's mandatory that they design a way to deal with sustainability issues in a specific context. And this is the big challenge for the students because they say, well, this is not my field. I'm in a repair shop. I'm in a public sector. I'm working. They have all kind of. They say, how could we? And it's actually the challenge. How do they combine this particular context with that? So this is the complexity. And when we have evaluated this program, we see there's a big. Some are really doers; they want to get out and get something done, and others just want to reflect. And we can say what has always annoyed me is that the university has a strong structure on everything. When you have to be what course literature, everything has to be in place before the students arrive. So it means that you sometimes can't be too agile. But something have to be opened. Otherwise, I can't learn to deal with uncertainty and complexity. So what are our intention? It is to make a dynamic interplay between perception, reflection, and action. Because if I say it in a short way, so what dare they to do? How big change are they involved in? And as I've tried to evaluate this course, and I've just written a paper about it. So I've been reading 18 assignments and figure out what's their focus. How do they respond to the demand about designing a change process? And I can see that they are strongly occupied with designs that they enable a transformation of knowledge about practice into new aids. So they are very aware of how demanding it is to pursue people in an organization that they have to act. And in a way, it's their own experience they transfer into that process, because they knew that how did they respond when they had this demand, and how did they respond to complexity. And I think that they actually are very interested in values in these design, but the economic aspect, they don't reflect much on this, and not at all about, I haven't seen anything about power relation between the different actors who are part of the process. But what we can see is that there's a growing awareness of own values and what influence value creation processes. Which aspect they keep? How do they perceive what's entrepreneurship about? If it says, okay, it's a capitalistic issue. It doesn't interest me. I'm interested in how we get the world, create a better world, more justice world, or my priority is in sustainability. So we have to deal with all these aspects, and students' conceptualization and meaning creation. It's very important if you talk about action and creation of new way of acting, is how you create meaning from what you are doing, what you're supposed to be doing, and what you have experienced. It's sort of basic aspect of learning, I think. So this is actually an old model for action competence, and this is my last slide. And it's from 1995, because we had a strong tradition in the Nordic country for environmental learning, miljøpædagogik. And I think that there's something you can go back to that. It's just like it has been, I don't know, neglected for some years. So if we take action competence in the center, then it's related to value-based. So you search for a normative argument for why should I act, and how would I be able to act together with others? There's this social aspect, and to develop action competence, there's also a personal dimension. I will call that an emotional element too. Do I have the courage and feel responsible for action? This feeling responsible, you're not taking responsible for anything. You don't think you can have any possibility to influence. So if I don't think my attitude or what I'm doing matters, why should I then enter into this? So this persuasion process is extremely important. And there's also this cognitive dimension, of course. What should I know about? Which kind of theories, what kind of knowledge is important for me? And also there's knowledge related to know how to do. And at the university, I think we have been more focused on tradition is about knowing about. So in an action competence, we have to be aware of that it's a complicated fields and they are related. Personally, I don't think that anyone who doesn't feel responsible will be very involved in anything. So that was my.
Thank you very much. Have a seat here. We'll bring you up after. So the format is that we're going to have both presentations, and then we'll open up for discussions and Q&A. So welcome up on stage, Klaus Greve and Martin Storkom Nielsen. Is going to talk about an entrepreneurial compass for exploring complex challenges.
It's on.
Hello. Yes. Good morning. Nice to see your faces.
All right. My name is Klaus Greve, and this is my colleague Martin Storkom, and we're presenting today with a tool that we designed for the program that we're teaching at Beer University College in Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And
I'm pressing the green one. The big green one.
Yeah.
There we go.
And it's called the Digital Jungle because the first time we used this was for exploring the opportunity to develop digital products. But it could be used in various settings, which we're going to explain to you during this presentation.
Yeah. As Klaus mentioned, we ran a course called Digital Technologies and Business Models, and the first time we did that, we realized through evaluations and conversations with the students that they had a need for more structure or process or something that would help them through this exploratory work where they had little maybe little vertical knowledge on, beforehand, and our course is quite short, so they needed more of a helping hand.
Yeah, especially when they're working on something that they didn't know what was yet. And we were talking about the future being VUCA based, so it's very, very rapidly changing. So it's difficult for them sometimes to structure this work.
Yeah. What we came up with, we'll show you in a second, but it should be understood as a playful approach to facilitating processes around complex problems. This is the best way we can frame it, and you might be thinking at the moment, what are they talking about? Hopefully it'll be making a little more sense in a second, but this was what we entered into the process with. So it's a tool that has game-like qualities.
Yeah. And it's structured around the physical roadmap where they're working through different phases, and this helps them to structure their work. Yeah.
Yeah. And what we're seeing is as they progress in the process, knowledge is produced, it's also logged and visualized throughout that process, and that's why we call it a roadmap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we wanted it to do was to support the co-creation of the participants through this process.
Yeah.
So it's built on theory based on collective creativity and co-creation.
And it's something we are seeing is very much in line with what we've talked about yesterday, and some of the highlights here that is necessary for the work on especially issues related to sustainable development.
Yeah.
Am I clicking? There we go. Yeah. It's based on learning theories, entrepreneurship, didactics. We won't go too much into detail because we would like to show you what we've created. In other formats, we would have shown you the physical thing here, but it has to be digital today. But very much like the business model canvas, it can be used for exploring existing business models, developing new ones. So this is the framework that, or the framing that you should have in your mind as we move into what is it.
Yeah. So to give you an introduction to the tool and make it a little bit more concrete, it's groups of 2 to 6 participants per roadmap, and the process consists of 6 phases guiding this process. So there's a pre-phase where you're not working around the board game, but that focuses on team alignment. So what is it actually we're working on here? That's really important to get that understanding in the group to begin with. And then five phases using the roadmap: status quo, vision, challenges and possibilities, strategy, and imagineering. And it can be facilitated, this process, during a single day or in the time span of a few hours, but it could also be over several days or weeks.
So it looks like this. We're starting here in the slightly grayish area, the more explored, tamed, not so wild area, and we call it the bank of means. And the aim is or as you progress, you move to the other side, to the bank of possible futures, the untamed wilderness, exploring what might be possible. And then it's about building that bridge. And another name for our tool is at the moment, or work in progress name is Bridging Sustainability, because we realized that it has great potential in working with sustainability issues. So the bank of means is about exploring the status quo. The bank of possible futures is the vision. The river gets us to explore the challenges and the opportunities. Or possibilities. And then strategy and imagineering. Imagineering was actually called sabotage at the moment, but we realized that was not so constructive. But then it's about creating some kind of action plan. And we use these artifacts. I think yesterday Jim said that he was not so sustainable because he uses a lot of Post-its. Sorry, Jim, for pulling me out here, but it's that same the same qualities of a Post-it that we've tried to imitate in these artifacts. And we have the home base, which should act as a pillar. You all know a bridge, right? There's a pillar, and something in between, where we explore. Sorry, I just wanted to show you here. We kind of define what is it that we are currently doing here. We had a business case, right?
Yeah, and this is also to show you the customizability of the artifacts that we're using. You could go in and structure them and design them for whatever project it is that you're working on. So in this case, we were working with a company called Spor, where the students were solving a problem for them, working with blockchain technology. But it could be other things as well. It could be anything, really.
I'm just skipping back here. So all these artifacts come together to form a visualization of the process that you have been through. And what we've seen is that people say, "Oh, Klaus, I remember when you put this stepping stone down and you set this thing and I wrote this." And so we tap into this collective intelligence, and we get that collective intelligence externalized and visualized throughout the process.
Yeah. And this always also makes it easier for the participants to go back and track the process. So what was it that we actually did when we were exploring the existing situation? What knowledge was produced in this phase? So it's also for companies who are using this. It might be 5-6 members of the organization that are participating in the workshop. Then it's a possibility for them to go home to the organization and show them what was it actually that we were working on and how did we get to the result.
And use it as a starting point.
Yeah.
I'm sure, how many of you have been in a workshop, like a design thinking workshop or other things where, there's a lot of energy. We see that with this tool. There's a ton of energy. Even when we ran this with colleagues, where we said, okay, now Klaus and I, we have a bank, a very traditional bank. Now make sure we have a bank in the future. Come up with problems and solve them. And they had a few hours to, and our colleagues said, well, we don't know anything about it. And within 5 minutes, they were all, energized, and they just wanted to solve this, right? But what happens when we leave the door, or leave the room, go out of the door? What happens? Sometimes, deflates. And what we're trying here is to make sure that energy and the momentum continues.
Yeah.
Another thing we've seen is that when we run this, for example, with students, they say, we can write a lot in 3 of them, but not in the 4th one. Okay, great. Or maybe it's in one of the other ones. Great. Now you found the hole in your collective knowledge. You know the next step, the next thing to do tomorrow. So what's homework? Figure out, what should be in this box, right? So that's in terms of helping them move along in a process that is uncertain and that they're not used to.
So really is a potential for them to go out and do research on this topic. And also just to make it more clear, all of the things that they're working on are hypothesis-based, so they need to go out and test them in the real world to qualify the process.
We've used it with students. We have used it with educators in an internal competency building activity. And we've used it with companies both within the Danish lifestyle and fashion industry, but also beyond that. And we've over the last year we've just tried to apply it in different settings and with different stakeholders, and it's fascinating. We learn so much every time and tweak it and so on. But what we've found is it's so versatile, because what is it helping people do? Go into a process where we don't really know that much in the beginning, and it helps us go as a group, become a group, and go through that process and remember what have we gone through. Different type of projects. So it was within digital technology, employee training, or sustainable development, building ecosystems or symbiosis between companies. Company A might have waste. How can company B use that waste as an input for a new product, and so on and so forth. Are we okay on time? Yeah. So what have you found?
Yeah. Well, initially we saw when we began the workshops, this playful approach of the tool creates a seductive atmosphere, and it creates engagement for the participants. Martin just told you that we saw participants who did not know anything about the topic they were working on, and they weren't really that interested in it, but it really sparked their interest in it, and after a few minutes they were just collaborating and creating knowledge together. So it really does create this seductive atmosphere, and it creates engagement. And there's a reduced emphasis on authority and power, aiding participation as well. And one of the things we're seeing is, especially when working with organizations, there's a big hierarchy. There's lots of different types of members of the organization in these, and there might be different levels of power here. So what we're seeing is that it puts a reduced emphasis on authority, and this sparks participation.
So I teach our international cohort, and what one of the main feedback I got after this course was they looked at me and said, "We didn't see each other as competitors."
Oh.
And I was baffled, like, do you even see yourself as competitors? Come on, you're students in the class. But apparently they did, and they didn't with this for some reason, right? But, yeah.
Well, and just to sum up on that, initially we used the word game for this tool. Mm-hmm. What we saw was that this brought up expectations of winning and losing, but that's really not the point. It's about participation, and therefore we're calling it now a process tool with a playful approach applied to it. Yeah.
Okay. We've touched on this as well. It supports this negotiation of knowledge creation, in general co-creation processes, but also saying, okay, here we've explicitized this assumption. Can we agree that our idea is based on these assumptions? Yes. Okay, let's go out and test them. So it supports that validation and testing of ideas and of assumptions and so on. we believe that by increasing the tangibility, we get it becomes easier to interact with wicked problems, because I see it sort of as a system map, and you can look at it at a glance. It's not a report. It's not a 40-page report that you have to read through. That's the strength of the business model canvas as well, compared to a business plan or other things, right? That was that you could look at it and it's manageable, right? And you can change it, right? So
yeah.
That was the last slide, Lars, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can
So-
we open for discussions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So please come up also, Bitte. So, yes. Any comments, questions? I have one thing to you, Bert, that you said that stuck in my mind early in your presentation. You said you're concerned about the willingness to act among the students. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, because when you act, you risk something, and the willingness to risk, and it's pro and con in that situation. And in some way, a lot of the students, they have managed. They have been successful because they have got grades. They have got so they want to continue on at a track which give them this comfort. So when you say, okay, these new rules, you have to you put yourself in play in a new way, and it makes them nervous. So that's why there's a huge support in being part of a group and collaborating, because people have different abilities, and it's helpful for students. But I think that students are more nervous and afraid of what would happen. So they should be very convinced about, is this a good idea?
Okay. Emily, you raise your hand. And please, raise your hand. I'll try to keep track of you, okay?
Yeah, well, thank you for the, I think it was interesting. I think also this nervousness to act, I think also what you showed with your process tool is there is an energy as well. But I think it's, when you're working on analysis with more classical frameworks, it's about giving them those tools so they can really sort of take their energy into action as well. And I think that's what it shows. But I'm also curious, Peter, because I think if you had humanities, sustainability, and entrepreneurship up there on the slide, and how do we marry those three areas? And I think there's a huge potential in mobilizing all the humanities students, and it's a challenge we've been working with in entrepreneurship, because it hasn't appealed to them for many years, and they understand it differently. And how do they apply their sort of the competence they learn in humanities to entrepreneurship, but we need them. I mean, we critically need them if we're going to address climate change and sustainability challenges. And we need their approach and the thinking that is so strong in humanities. So what in your view, I mean, I think sometimes, is it the role of entrepreneurship to come up with alternative business models? All of this sort of saying that creativity is a big part of entrepreneurship, and creativity is what's going to help us solve sustainability challenges so that it appeals to them. Is it about looking at different kinds of understanding of a business model? What is a business model? What is a future that we don't know within a sustainability? It requires completely different solutions, completely different business approaches. So the whole narrative and vocabulary in entrepreneurship should change, maybe, to encompass them and get them to see. So what would your advice be for us to definitely mobilize all the knowledge, and when you showed them the sort of individual model of how to act into sustainable entrepreneurship?
I think maybe you should talk less about business models and the economic dimension, because I think what's in front is what's in it for me, what could mobilize my interest. So I think that you have to believe that you have a future before you want to act. And a lot of we have in the course we have discussion where someone says, is it okay to have kids? Why should we have kids? What kind of world are we in? What are we contributing to? And so it's very serious, deep questions. So I think that you should redefine what entrepreneurship is about, and that's the good idea about value creation, to address it more like a social dimension and not put money as a driving force. If you have money as your priority, it's not always the right attitude, because you put more. I think that it's also documented that if we become a single entrepreneur, it's not first of all that you want to over money. You really want to make a difference. So how can you make a difference? And I think it has been, well, there is an aura about entrepreneurship which more like male taking risk, wearing suits, and a lot of women can't see themselves reflected in that. So it should be reformulated and saying, well, the good thing about entrepreneurship is the action competence and the idea that you can make a change yourself or together with others. And this change must be meaningful. It would be part of creating a better world. I think that I have noticed who was talking mostly about values and ethics. Was it male or females when we were together? I think it was a big mix, but I came to think about that. What's a good life? Why are we here? And especially when we are all faced with a problem that we don't know how long we live. None of us know, but I mean, when we talk about Putin is doing, and it's sort of, okay, what have technology brought us to? What could be another answer? And sometimes the big change in world are related to people thinking about new things. Imagine another world and do what they believe in. It's also have a backside if they believe in terrible things. So talk less about business models and talk more about vision and making a difference.
Thank you. We have another question there. Go ahead, Helle.
Yes, I'm just maybe following a little bit up on your question, Magnus, regarding action in your course, Birte, having run some courses that maybe are going little along the same alley, you could say. I'm just really curious about how much do you demand of action from the students, and how do you evaluate the action? Is it the outcome, or is it maybe the braveness of the students, or how do you evaluate it?
This is we have just. It's not defined in the curriculum that you should develop action competence. It's because it's like entrepreneurship skills. It's hard to define and hard to evaluate. So they make this assignment within this course, and you can see how and it's passed or not passed. So we say, okay, how are they addressing values? How do they design for interaction, and what's their experience? And the very hard part is to show action, actually doing it. Because, and it's normal when I teach in didactic pedagogy, I don't see my students in teaching situation when we evaluate them. That's why I think that at university I'm more reflecting about knowledge than about action. And it's very hard to evaluate people's action. So it's always mostly what people are saying they want to do or arguing why they do, not the actual doing. And it's the hard part, and I miss more of that.
Okay, thank you. We have a question there.
Yes, well, it's more like a comment. You said that we should focus less on business models. I actually disagree, because as my point was yesterday, we're not going to change the economics today, and we're here to discuss sustainability, entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship is still business. So we need to merge that into each other instead, but we need to do it from another paradigm. So what we have been doing for a long time, and it's sort of raising the paradox between doing things right and doing the right things. So that is what we're here to merge, right? So doing the right things is what sustainability requires, but doing things right is what business actually is. So we need to take that into account, or at least find ways, and there is not one way, but there's multiple ways, and that are the new kinds of business models and terms of paradigms of value creation that we need to integrate into that to merge those two, because otherwise we will keep working in silos and not unite and move forward with both of them, and that is not going to move economics either. So more business models and types of business models, but we need to be risk willing and take new leaps of faith, and that is what economics is going to merge, as I see it.
Okay, thank you. We'll bring in another question, comment, and then see what the presenters want to say.
Yeah, thank you. Kjore Moberg, Danish Foundation. 2 questions for the gamers. During the lockdown, there has been a lot of online tools with post-its and so on. So the first question, have you tried to do this online in one of these programs with post-its and so on? And the other is, do this need expansions already? So systems thinking expansion, or any thoughts about that?
Thank you. With regards to your first question, I was unfortunate enough to contract COVID this February, where I was teaching this course. So and luckily, everything was made digital and printed physically. And so when I was confined to my house, I could try this out, or at least I could move to the virtual version and then Zoom with my students. And so it's definitely possible. But since all of this is created in Illustrator, we have digital artifacts. So we don't even, it doesn't have to be generic post-its. We can still use the framework and facilitate it across distances and time, because it becomes asynchronous. In that if a group member cannot join because of XYZ having a kid, then the person can still catch on or collaborate, but online. The second question.
Yeah, but I just need to add to this, because we have been trying to do it, like as Martin said, where he was online and he was facilitating the process, but the students were still together in the physical world. We have also been trying to do it in other settings where the participants were all online due to COVID. And it's just something really challenging there, because a lot of the value creation and building upon each other's knowledge that's happening is actually in those small conversations that's happening as something that's going on in the process, besides of just working on the different phases. And that's really, really difficult to facilitate when people are sitting in a Zoom meeting room. So I see it as challenging, but you could do it, but then it becomes more focused on the process and the different phases of the process when we're doing it online. So it's challenging. It can be done, and you can still use it to create value, but yeah, not in the same sense as when people are together physically.
I can imagine that, just to finish it, this question off, I can imagine that if you start out in person or physically, you can still put everything into a digital version, but if you're all together in the beginning, getting off on the right track, then you can collaborate online afterwards. I think that might be a way, like if we say over a semester. The second question, expansions. These home bases, exploration stations and so on, they are similar to in their content, mostly when we use it, to a very simple business model canvas. And we've been discussing, okay, could we use a triple layered approach to it, or could we the bridges? What could that consist of existing frameworks that students know of or should know of because of curriculum and so on, that they should learn about this tool, but now we put it into the rest of the process. So I cannot give you like specific examples of where we, because we haven't done that yet.
We've been thinking about like putting like phases in where you're focusing on building prototypes as well, generating stuff, so you can access knowledge on a deeper level. So we could do that in various ways also for the students to actually not only base it on hypothesis building by using these artifacts, but also by building prototypes that they can go out and then test in the market to get it validated.
We both have a design background, and we know that you shouldn't say, okay, so come up with an idea, right? Go brainstorm. But the tool doesn't have that in it. But we could then say, now we envision future scenarios. Okay, let's pick a method, a tool, something from our toolbox, and connect that, and we would have to further develop it to more seamlessly connect that. Yeah.
But it definitely holds the potential for further expansions. Yeah.
We're waiting for the expansion pack 2.0.
Exactly.
So thank you very much. It's time actually to have a I know I had 2 questions. I'm well aware of that, Johan. But we're going to save those till after the coffee break. And so, Signe Bühl to talk about the Babson Student Challenge. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so lucky to stand here both yesterday and today. So I hope you're not tired of listening at me. But today I'm going to talk about Babson Student Challenge, which is a pitching competition. We have been hosted it at NTNU and the University in Nord for the last 2 years, but we are combining the 2 universities for hosting this pitching competition. So this year, people from North had their own workshop, and then they decided 2 or 3 teams, this year it was 2 teams, that were coming to Trondheim, and then they were pitching on stage, live, and then we sent them further on to the global competition afterwards. But this is actually called the Babson Collaborative Annual Global Challenge, and it's a pitching competition that we have adopted. So it's actually from Babson University in Boston. And we can now take part of this because we are part of the membership in Babson Collaborative. So it's worldwide. There are really a lot of universities working together to make this pitching competition growing and having the main purpose and impact. So this is all over, but especially at NTNU and University Nord. The activities to support lectures with an entrepreneurship. And this is also what we talked a lot about yesterday. Maybe it's not only within the curriculum that we need to teach about entrepreneurship and to engage people to act, both with an entrepreneurial mindset and sustainable. So this is next to the curriculum. And therefore we also try to involve students from different faculties, so it's not necessarily entrepreneurs that are coming to attend this competition. Furthermore, this pitching competition is only for business cases that works directly with sustainability. So there will be an increased focus, and therefore we also celebrate startups that are having these focuses. And they will get specific awards and have a chance to compete with these really hardcore business models where they earn a lot of money. So the way we do it is that we are having a local competition at our university where we set up a panel, and they are giving feedback on the pitching in terms of the feasibility studies that I also talked about yesterday. And then today we have also made this pitching competition as a part of a bigger thing. So we are hosting a sustainability day at NTNU 1 time a year, where this pitching competition is a part of the program. So it's a whole day with a focus on sustainability. And then we choose 1 winner that will get a local reward of 5,000, and then 2 other winners, you can say so, 1 from the bachelor's and 1 from the master degree. So these 3 teams will go to the global competition, where the global competition is then done only digitally. So the teams have to make a video of themselves where they're pitching, And then it's all the universities that are participating that will also be the judges. So here the overall winning prize is that the team can attend 1 week of boot camp at Babson University, where they can develop their business plan. So the overall tool and framework that we are using and all the universities are using is the SDGs and then the regular feasibility studies. So they need to make the problem statements and make a problem market analysis. And to do this, we are also acting as mentors to help the students to do this as best as they can, especially for people that are not necessarily entrepreneurs and not used to be on a stage. So all the feedback that the judges will do are then scheduled. So there will be a framework where you will have different areas that you need to be aware of. And then when you are participating in the global competition, there will be maybe 8 or 10 judges from the worldwide that will look at your specific pitch and give you recommendations that you will have to develop your business case further on. Even though you're not a winner, you will therefore get a lot out of participating in this pitching competition. So some of the main activities that we do as a hosting country is first of all to creating this awareness and to motivate people to participate. And this is actually quite a hard job because people are not believing in themselves. And we need to make sure that you are having a really, really cool idea. And maybe you're not an entrepreneur, but I can see that this is really, it could be successful. So let's just give it a try. And for example, at Nord University, they're not a school of entrepreneurship, so it's not that big of a focus. So they had a separate workshop before the assigning deadline. So people were working with how to make a pitch and how to put it in this kind of structure. And actually one of these teams were winning and were also part of the best teams at the global competition. Really, really cool case actually. And then there is a lot of activities in terms of keeping the contact with the students from our own university, being mentors, listening at their pitches, and then being the judges for external universities. And then there have been a lot of activities in terms of hosting the Sustainability Day, where we, for example, also had some panel discussions. It was made on a stage, but we were also streaming it. And this year we were talking about circular economy at our panel discussion. And then we also invited both startups and people from the industry and organization that works with sustainability to have stands in our conference room. So there were a lot of work to host this Sustainability Day, and we have done it for the first time this year. So I would appreciate inputs for Sustainability Day if anyone else has done it. Yeah. But this is really, really cool because it really connects the world. So this is all the participants in the final for the global competition in 2021. And actually the people standing up here, they are from NTNU School of Entrepreneurship that I talked about yesterday. And they got the winning prize last year. So they are called Woolero, and they are trying to make packaging out of surplus wool in Norway, which is today is just thrown away, and then you actually have to pay to get rid of this wool. But unfortunately there was Corona, so they didn't have the chance to go to Babson, but they were participating online for this workshop week and had a lot out of it. And actually now I'm just like really happy, but this year it was also a team from NTNU that won. So Acoustic Design are going to Babson this summer to work with their business case. They have made an autonomic program where they can, I don't know if I can pitch to their idea, but they are, you know when you put like small pins in the wall, and then you put threads around it, and then you can make a pattern. So he have made this so you can just take a picture, and then it will automated make it into this frame, actually a picture, but then it will work like an acoustic element, which is needed in buildings today. So you can use some of these monies that are always reserved for designs. Yeah, and then you can use it also for a practical purpose. I was not preparing to pitch the idea today, but now I just had to. Yeah. So I can really recommend to be a part of this membership and to take an action in motivating people to act sustainable with an entrepreneurship. And with this, I'll say thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, let's open up for questions. My plan was also now that if there are sort of unfinished questions with the previous presentations we can ask, take care of that as well. I know you had raised your hand before, so I'll start with giving the word to you.
Okay, thank you. Peter Hultén, Dalarna University. And, I had my question was to the previous presentation.
But you can ask them and they will answer. So that's the easy
fantastic.
thing.
Great. There you are. I was thinking about this testing of assumptions that you mentioned. And when do the participants start to test their assumptions?
And use the microphone at your chair when you answer.
I think it's throughout the process. Okay, feedback. They explicitize their assumptions in the process, but it's the tool itself does not ask them to or does not help them test their assumptions. It's a different expansion pack, you could say, but it's because when this was created, we applied it in digital technologies and business models, which is the first course. After that comes a course called Concept Validation, which is very much about testing business ideas. So it was to help them hit the ground running with a lot of explicitized assumptions that they could start testing. They didn't have that knowledge about how to go out and test. When we ran that course, they would be learning about that in the course afterwards. I hope that helped.
Okay, that's a very good answer, because it's a lot to ask for someone who does it for the first time. And I would like to talk more about that later. Thank you.
Jeppe.
Hi, Jeppe Dørup from Aarhus University. Thank you, Signe. I had a couple of questions. One was, how many teams enter this competition? And the second one is picking up on a discussion we had yesterday on how do you then measure whether sustainable or how good of a sustainability case is it? Is there a framework for doing that in this particular competition? How do they rate whether sustainable or not?
At NTNU, there was only 8 teams that signed up. But overall, there have been 200 teams worldwide. Yeah. In the local competitions, and then I don't remember how many that were in the semifinals. I think it was around 50 maybe. Yeah, and then 15 in the final or something this year. And for the measuring of sustainability, I don't think there is a tool, or there is not a tool of setting, like scaling. There's no numbers, there's no grading system. But there is an enormous weight on how they are both putting the problems that they're trying to solve within sustainability and how they're going to do it. So they really need to answer these questions, and it needs to be clear. And then, of course, they're also using the SDGs, but it's really, they cannot just put them without explaining them and to put them into the business case. Yeah, so it's more about the whole overall view.
I have one question over there first.
Yeah, I hope that we are allowed to ask questions about your presentation yesterday as well, because I got a question. You had 450 something students who are applying to be a part of this challenge. And at VIA University College, where we teach, we try to do these things as well. And we come up with all of these really interesting challenges, we think. But students do not apply to it. So do you have a good idea about what was the main driver for them to apply for this challenge?
Yeah, now you ask for a challenge, but the 450, it was people that applied for the master program. Yeah. But actually, I would like to answer that question, because the people that are working on spreading the word, it's the students. And it's all on the students. The faculty are not doing anything. So every year there are one of the students that start at the semester, so after maybe 1 month, they will get the pin about you are the one that are in charge now. And then she is, or he, is then the one who is telling all rest of the class that we should go out and talk about it. So we are having stands at the universities, we are entering the curriculum for other faculties as a guest lecturer, telling a little bit about the school. So it's really spreading word by mouth at the universities.
But you had a question before the break. Do you remember you raised your hand to ask a question?
Yeah, but I was asking it.
Okay, so you already had your answer there. Okay. And is it something you want to tell the answer to the rest of the audience?
It was about the framework tool, where we were talking about if it has been working also as a framework tool for actual startups, or it have mainly been a workshop tool. And for now, it has mainly been workshop tool, but it's supposed to grow to be a tool that you can use when you're doing a startup.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. And you had a question, Emily?
And this is also, thank you for the presentation, also other ideas of doing these things with sort of student competition. And in my previous job at the Climate Kick, we had an initiative called the Climate Launchpad, which was basically like a Eurovision contest for green startups, where they all came together. So across the globe, we have 50 countries participating. But I think the critical thing was, it was of course the student idea, but was very much also partnerships with the incubators, with the hubs across the universities, and the collaboration with them or their business partners. And I think that is a way forward, because we see these great student ideas coming into the space, and I think the collaboration with Babson, I think, is also a big pull, and I think can provide a lot of value. But I think in order for us to maybe formalize it or make it more organizational, integrated, how can we take that and then expand it to the collaboration with the frameworks around the students, so the hubs that they are part of, or the business partners that this hub has, and bring them into these competitions? So if we elevate it a little bit, so it goes beyond the student ideas, back into, okay, actually that's a good vehicle for bringing ideas from the ecosystem around the university into these competitions. It requires a bit more, and the whole setup becomes bigger, but I think it provides a fantastic opportunity for knowledge collaboration and working with other international hubs or universities around their student ideas. So I'm just curious and I also NTNU has been a little bit part of this as well, but I think that's one of the way forwards maybe we can see for European universities.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have an answer, but I know that what we are working a lot with, it is to make, for example, the Babson University Challenge. We're trying to collect different programs and pitching competitions, and then make it connected. So for example, for the Sustainability Day, the panel discussion is something that we have had many times before, but have been standing alone. And now we have made these two things as a thing together. And in that way, because I think the student challenge should be for students, but if you are the same day just in another room or later at the program, then you will hear the people from the industry or professors discussing some of the same areas, but without interrupting. I don't know if it's right to say, but the actual pitching competition. I think, yeah. Also, for example, the NordSEnt workshop that we were having in April, we were also trying to connect that with the startup environment, and we were inviting students, even though they were not a part of the project, to be a part of the workshop that we were hosting. So we're trying to connect all these things, all the initiatives.
Okay, we have one question down there. Please go ahead.
Hi. My name is Pawan. I'm actually from Singapore, bachelor's from the National University of Singapore, currently on exchange here at KTH. So it's more of a question on a student perspective. I wanted to ask, regarding your student challenge, have you thought of inviting like industry professionals, mentors to aid students in like their problems? Because coming from a student perspective, sometimes we don't know if the problem you're trying to tackle is really a problem. So in your sustainability day that you had, which I think is really great, have you thought of like inviting professionals? Why or why not? Yeah, thank you.
We have thought about it, but not especially within the Babson Student Challenge. But it's mainly because of resources. We don't have hands to make these workshops and to make the people meet each other. So it would be in another process. And then for the Babson pitching competition, the students need to sign up with an idea. But they make the initiative a bit at the Nordic University, as I told about. But it was unfortunately not with the industry. So it's definitely a place that we could develop and scale it. It's a really good idea.
Great. Any more questions?
No, but I have a last comment.
Yes, please do.
I just want to use the chance while I'm standing here, but I think it has been really, really great being a part of this collaboration and being a part of all the discussions. And yesterday you asked everyone in the panels, what would you do tomorrow to do this? I would like to answer that as well.
Okay.
Because I want to keep the discussion warm. I think that's how we move forward. So this is an open invitation for all of you to just call me. I'm not the best at answering my email box, but I think we should use the network that we now have built up, even though NordSEnt is over. So just pick up the phone, and even if you're just bored and want to chit-chat about sustainability or something else, I think it's important that we do that. Don't be afraid of calling.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So, with that, I would like to ask up on stage Johan Karlstedt and Emily Norman. And one of you will use the hand mic, and Johan will use this one. And I will
use this one, thank you.
I'll stand over here. So,
It's not no.
last slide,
Yes. That one?
no, you actually get one hand mic each. See.
Okay. Thank you.
Equal opportunity here.
You made a perfect bridge, I think. What happens in the future with this fantastic network, I think it's been, for me, extremely valuable and interesting and cheerful days just to see each other, meet up again and have discussions and learn from each other. I think it's fantastic. So thank you all for coming. I will start with that, really. Yes.
Yes. But I also, because now we have 20 minutes, I think, before we will wrap up and go for lunch. And
15, to be honest.
15, to be honest.
Yeah, maximum.
So this is a time where we want to pull in the last ideas. Johan, I know that you have been noticing a little bit, you have taken the discussion of how to deliver each other's activities, how do we benchmark, and how this idea of the universities being a platform into sort of working a little bit further on that. Maybe you want to say how that can look like?
Well, just collaboration and learn from each other, I think that's the main thing, and that's what EVA is all about, this building is all about, so I think it's so important. And I really would like to take this further, because one thing that's so interesting, and we are doing it today, but if you talk about innovation, it's all about, you need critical mass of things. You know that, of course. Knowledge, capital, cooperation with different parts and so on. And I always thought about that you're so good at universities to work with other researchers, educators from different parts of the world, but it would be very interesting if we can start a collaboration at the Baltic level or Nordic level, more than we do today. Because we are good, as we said when we started this conference, at innovation. And how can we improve that? And we've seen that with the Business Council at IVA. It's all about, in the future, about entrepreneurship, how to work with startups, how to work with students. And then this platform that we discussed yesterday is so important. How can we develop the platforms even better and more? And really collaborate on the platforms with education, the ecosystem, research, and how can we help the business get into the platform, the society to get into the platform. I think that would be very interesting to take that further.
Should we then, in order to do that, if we're going to see the universities as these platform for promoting and addressing and looking at solutions around sustainable entrepreneurship, and working with, do we start with the incubators? Should we start with faculty? Is it a question of starting at the strategic level? And I think if it's a Nordic part, where would be the best place to start tomorrow?
That's a very good question. I like challenges, and I think perhaps we should address some challenges. What needs to be done together and put them forward and start collaborating with these challenges and solve them. Because we talked yesterday also about top-down and bottom-up. And of course it's top-down at strategic level and everything. But it's also very interesting to see what we are doing right now and how can students also be a part of this change in different ways.
And I think that's very clear. And I think just the case we just saw here with the Babson challenge, where it's students, but of course it's also the innovative ideas that has come and that's been sort of awarded. How does that innovative then live further life? And maybe it needs the research environment at the university around it to become a sustainable idea, and it needs the ecosystem, and needs some industry sort of validation as well. And how do we embed that? We also have some incubators here, and there's been some examples of that, and that has also been part of the NordSEnt project to look at sustainability and entrepreneurship, both from the view of education and programs, but also from what goes on in the incubators, what goes on at the co-curricular level. So maybe we should throw it out there to you all. Where would be the starting point?
Yeah. I think you have a lot of ideas and thoughts. Yes, please.
I think it's always nice to have these meetings with people who think alike, because we all have the same idea, or we have similar ideas and similar visions. But the trick is really, how do you share that and get others to buy into it? So if there's one thing that I think we should take with us and start working on, it's how do you identify the bottlenecks? How do you identify and address the bottlenecks so you can get the buy-in from the ones from the top, in particular, buy-in from the top, and then start to share those ideas, because that's really valuable learning that we can share.
That's a good input. At the Entrepreneurship Academy, we are really into entrepreneurship education, and we want to see the entrepreneurship education like a red thread throughout the whole educational system in Sweden, more than we have today. And we gathered, in fact, I think educators and researchers from almost all universities in Sweden, and had this discussion. What's the challenges? What needs to happen to make this reality? That every student really get the opportunity, in any case, in a way, to take part in entrepreneurship education in different ways. And perhaps that's something we should do. What are the bottlenecks or challenges, and how can we address them? And I think it's all about visibility as well, to show what we are doing, and the effects, the results of what we are doing. I think that's one part that we can do together as well.
Yeah, And I think also that's not, if I can bring in my colleague Cora as well, in these discussions about where we're starting, because we have the issue of, and I thought it was a good discussion yesterday about the platforms and stepping up and looking at how this creative space that a university really is, how do we leverage that? It also comes back to, I think, this morning discussions about the issues of an understanding of what entrepreneurship and sustainability is and how do we bring it back into the curricula. Cor, I know you had some reflections on that. Can I ask you what do you think would be a good place to start if sustainable entrepreneurship needs to be both the bottlenecks but something to take forward?
I'm not sure, but I can give it a go. I mean, I did this survey of universities in Denmark of how they interpret the strategic documents about sustainability and entrepreneurship. So this is the push that has been on educators and so on, and I tried to find out how they made sense of it. So it was a study of like how they used sense making to translate this into programs and courses and so on to the students. And I think one of the findings there was that I mean, we have been discussing a lot what it is, which competences is necessary, and that has been so much focus on that on the policy level. And no one mentioned anything about taxonomies and so on, but they did actually develop these competences. So it's a bit of what are academics actually doing and what can we do and how does this translate and are we doing the right things? So I think I more came up with more questions than answers in regards to where to start. And I'm not sure if it is the strategic levels or if it is at the practitioner levels, but certainly it's some interplay between the two that is important to focus on and where we perhaps can move the needle.
And I think this discussion about the taxonomy and competencies goes also back to the discussion we had this morning. Are we talking about new business models, emerging business models? Should we even talk about business model or more value models? Or is there a mandate on us who work with entrepreneurship to try to constantly bring that back into an entrepreneur narrative, but maybe a much wider one? If we're going to move a whole sort of value chain ecosystem in a sustainable direction, we need to have an appreciation of how sort of policy and industry works, but they need to be acting more sustainably. And how can we inject that through the mindset, through the competencies that we equip the students with, but also when we challenge ourselves as educators and the pedagogic behind entrepreneurship. So we still allow entrepreneurship to be those tools and methodologies that are necessary to address sustainability challenges, but maybe in a much, much wider sense. So it's less about the final outcome, a little bit what we traditionally look at as ventures and other sort of value creation exits, but more a different outcome where the process is really critical. So that's a little bit, so there's both an issue of quality in taxonomy, quality in competencies, challenging ourselves around the narratives that we use. That comes back to academia, I think. Yeah. And then there's this issue of maybe of the incubators and a more integrated environment around sustainable entrepreneurship. There's a question up there. Is that maybe for, yeah, please?
Yes, I'm thinking about that we've heard a lot of good initiatives during this conference, but I'm thinking how much of these initiatives reaches the students. If you ask 10 random students on your campus, do they know that these things exist? So I'm thinking about the marketing strategy. Here I want to mention an example from when I was a part of the student union management team at Chalmers, and the pandemic really struck and the exam period started 2 days later. So they made a decision that all exams should be online in 2 days. So we have the mission to inform 11,000 students so they know that in 2 days you're going to have it on Zoom and not be on campus. We realized very, very fast that if we send a long, boring email with a lot of information, so answers all the questions, nobody's gonna read the email because everybody is stressed about the exams. So what we did and what I think that you also can do is, like, all the university has a Facebook group where we share memes, and this is like the way young people know that, okay, there's a lot of news every day. It's boring to read the news because it's the same thing every day. But if you watch the memes, then you know if there's something really, really big happening. So we spent like 6 hours just creating memes and shared it in the group. And within 1 hour, we had 4,000 views. So it's not maybe the answer you want, but I think it's the answer we need. So don't be afraid to.
So I take the opportunity again. I think part of the challenge ahead of us is we're doing something different. And since we're doing something different, it needs to be assessed differently. We're talking about competencies, and that is not the same thing as assessing memory in a written exam. What I think is needed is some sort of portfolio assessment where we can cover all the competences that we are touching upon in a program like this one. And then the toughest challenge is then to get that accepted by a diversity of people who have no clue what it is about.
Yes.
I definitely like the portfolio view. I think that's really critical when you work within sustainability, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Kåre?
Yeah, I would like to pick up on what you just said about doing something different. And I think the thing I would say differs sustainable entrepreneurship from traditional entrepreneurship is, I would say there should be more focus on collective action in sustainable entrepreneurship, because many of those working with sustainability is challenging the system, challenging the institutional system, and that's very hard. So focusing on how to do these, to engage in collective action, to get others to get in line with what you want to change, because that's typically quite necessary when going up against the system. And maybe we should also try to develop those competences ourselves. I mean, to do this type of change and to reach out to more people, to engage them in this collective action that we are looking for at the university-wide system, not only at courses and teachers, but also with the innovation system and the co-curricular activities and so on. Because a lot of the incubators, they know the design thinking, they know the methodology, and they are secure in teaching that and guiding their incubators in that. But when it comes to sustainability, many of those in my survey was, oh, it's those, they want to change the world, the tree huggers and so on, and we will just teach them how to do proper business, because it's not only good enough to do the right thing, they should also do it right, and there is our focus. So I think we need to engage more people in this collective action. So maybe we should try to, while trying to teach this to our students, also develop the competence ourselves.
I think that's so true. And one thing we noticed in the business council at the IVA, and even if you go to Silicon Valley and look at the big companies, sustainability is real right now. It's a part of the business plan. And that's a message to the universities and to the students that this is for real. This is important. This is a competence you need if you're going to work for us in the future. So we have a lot of things that we can gather and really make a push forward, even at the strategic level at university, I think.
Yeah, there's a, Jeppe, sorry.
It was simply to follow up on the couple of questions that are there on the wall right now. I think one of the things that we've learned, at least from Aarhus University, or two sort of very concrete takeaways. this project made us start that particular course workshop that Helle was talking about yesterday, and we'll continue to elaborate and improve it. And I think over time we will also be able to engage the students in it and so on and so forth. But the other thing is we've really learned a lot from both NTNU and Chalmers about the whole setup around a master's program. We'll also be pursuing that in the future. And these are takeaways that, at least for us, are enough to say that we've taken a lot from this program. The discussions around sustainability, of course, will continue. I think, as been said many times, it's something that will come. It's real. There's a push both from above and from below. And so I think that mechanism will make sure that we will also integrate that further and further.
Well, I think that's. I think that, and I think it's very, when you have these international project collaboration, I mean, the networking is really good, and it's also been both, I think it's nice that you have confirmed that when you go out and visit each other and look into what they are doing, you become inspired, and I think developing a master's program is a fantastic concrete outcome that I think will have a lot of sort of ripple effect. I think maybe from the project side, maybe what we will do is, of course, we will hand over the guidebook with the 17 recommendations, like the 17 SDGs, that will be part of, sorry Malte, I'll just give you, but just let you, yeah.
Yeah, so I was also thinking, how do we answer this? How do we take the discussion forward? And one very concrete thing that I think we should start to discuss is, what does good mean? Because we have a lot of good ideas and a lot of pushes, and I think that's really the role of academic institutions. It is to define what does good mean in this context, and also because I know for entrepreneurship, good means a lot of things, so it's really hard to define. But there are quite tangible ways to define good when we're talking about sustainability, and I think it's necessary to have that as a guiding tool to understand if you are actually doing good sustainable entrepreneurship, but also to differentiate between those who actually do it right and those who don't do it right.
Of course, comment on that.
Yes, of course. As a recent graduate, and that's the perspective I have, and having been met with the lack of knowledge and the lack of willingness to actually move on this agenda, I will say from a very practical side, if people are passionate about sustainability, they will move to where sustainability is and where they can actually learn about it. So that's why I went out of Denmark. And I know that Lund and Chalmers are really, really good examples, and that's the branding that they have within, sustainable students, communities. But being met with entrepreneurship hubs, incubation environments that doesn't know what a sustainable business model is, that's an issue, because you can't get the competences, you can't get the help that they're there to give you. So what I've heard is, why don't you do something digital instead, so you can make money tomorrow? Well, that's not what I'm doing. That's not what sustainability is, because it needs some sort of a level of change. And I've heard professors say in classes to me, sustainability will never be something that is relevant in this world. In business school, that's 1.5 years ago. I was invited in I have been by several professors that just wanted to pick my brain about the knowledge that I sought out in my free time, because it was not on the schedule. And after I graduated, I've been offered 2 PhDs until now to just offer the knowledge and the advice that I've found throughout my studies. And it's actually pretty easy to integrate. But the ones not knowing about this is not the students, it's the professors. Because the students, at least in Denmark, already knows about the SDGs from high school and gymnasiums and stuff like that, because they already integrated. But that comes down to the processes that we have on universities. We need to see everything from 100 different kinds of perspective perspectives in order to validate it. That creates a friction in time, also for markets or students to actually adapt the knowledge. So if I'm a gymnasium student and I'm choosing my education, and the curriculum says nothing about sustainability or the SDGs, I'm like, okay, I will go where it is. So on a very practical level, put it into the description. I think you made the point yesterday. Put it into the descriptions, also in the incubation environment. Tell the students, how can we help? What competences do we have within sustainability to help? And if it's only a little, then just say that. Inform.
I think you just defined a big, great, important challenge with target groups as well. I think it's very interesting, isn't it, to take forward together in some way.
Good, Johan. I think we will. Should we see what we will? Should we try and wrap up this today? Are there any more just comments that we need that will be part of? Because then we'll just let you know what will maybe happen here, and if we're going to wrap up some of the things.
Yes, what's happening after this session? Yeah. First of all, thank you very much for being here and give so much knowledge to all of us. Thank you for our partners in NordSEnt. It was a fantastic project. Magnus, you did a good job.
Thank you.
For 2 days. Thank you for being here and help us with this. And Helene, final words. What are we going to do now? And perhaps something, what's coming out from this conference? We send something out.
Yeah. I also want to say thank you to all of you for interesting discussions. And we are going to send an email with all the presentations, but we have to get okay from the speakers first. So just let us know if it's okay that we share it. Yes, I also want to say thank you to Magnus. You need a chocolate too. There you are.
Thank you.
Now we only have one thing left in the program, and that is lunch served upstairs. So we hope you enjoy the lunch and mingle in our nice garden. So have a nice lunch and a nice summer. Thank you all.
Thank you.